Before the Boeing 747, there was another queen that ruled the skies, arguably the most elegant airliner to have ever been created. Of course, this is none other than the Vickers Armstrong's VC10. The VC10 first took flight in June of 1962, later entering service as a commercial airliner for British Overseas Airways Corporation in 1964. Complete with 4 Rolls-Royce Conway engines, this aircraft was designed with long-distance routes in mind, with the ability to perform on short runways, hot temperatures, and high altitudes. This queen was fit for just about any situation you threw at her. With one of the most realistic undercarriages and landing gears I've seen on an aircraft, I was very impressed with the exterior model of the VC10. This aircraft comes with its own ground crew, featuring 2 air stairs and baggage carts. This can be activated by the ground crew jack located on the rear bulkhead panel, or using the add-ons tab on Prepared or FSX. The VC10 also comes with 10 liveries that will bring you through the history of the commercial service of this great aircraft. So without further ado, let's go inside the cockpit and have a look. As you enter the flight deck, you will notice stains on the floor, assumingly coffee from one of the many long hauls. Now, the VC-10 is an aircraft about teamwork, therefore, aside from the normal flight deck, there is a near fully operational flight engineer station and a navigation station to which only the ADF radios are functional at the moment. The crews often consisted of 3 to 4 depending on the flight, and as I start to explore around, I notice the textures look nice and accurate. The windshield wipers are great inside and outside the airplane, and that's right, they work on the outside, which is sometimes a rarity with these aircrafts, but JustFlight has made sure to model those on the exterior model, looking great when you're departing out in those rainy days. Now let's explore the night lighting. The lighting on the outside of the aircraft looks great. Unfortunately, I cannot really say the same for the inside. The lighting only appears when it gets to a certain level of darkness outside, meaning there is no gradual effect, and you cannot see it during the day or during dusk. It just kind of seems to suddenly show up, much like the outside lighting around airports and towns. Now, when comparing the cockpit lighting to the real aircraft lighting, there isn't really too much of a comparison. I would like to see this improved upon, as, doing night flights would look fantastic with the correct night lighting. So to get started with starting the plane, we're going to make sure the parking brake right here is set. And then moving back here that the HP levers are all moved in the down position. After this, we will head over to the flight engineer station, which is where most of the startup will happen. Now first, let's power up the aircraft. And one thing you will notice right away that there are no switch sounds when flicking the switches. JustFlight is currently working on this, so expect it to be fixed sometime soon. After turning on the batteries, we will now turn on the generators. And then moving down to the hydraulics. Next, we'll move over to our avionics. We will set our heading and course heading. Today the winds are out of 260, so we'll be departing runway 27 at Heathrow today. These all seem to operate fine. The only disappointing thing is that there are no V-speed bugs on the airspeed indicator. But other than that, everything seems to function fine. The speed bugs they will be adding soon, so expect those. The airplane is also equipped with an auto throttle, which we will set our climb speed of about 200. Next, we'll tune our first VOR, which will be 112.75. Next, we will turn on the pilot head heating. We will now move back to the flight engineer position and start the number 3 engine. The number 3 engine is started first because it is able to provide electrical and hydraulic power to the aircraft. So first we'll turn on the fuel booster pumps and then the number 3 HP lever, and then back over here to the ignition. Put this on LP start and then select the number 3 switch, and you should start to see the gauges come alive and hear the engine start. We will now continue on with the number 4 engine, followed by the 1 and 2 engines. And having never actually heard the VC10 engines running at idle in real life, I resorted to YouTube videos as a comparison, and with all 4 engines started, I am very pleased with the sound that I'm hearing both inside and outside the aircraft. With the engine start checklist complete, it's now time to taxi over to the runway. I've checked the flight controls, turned on the lights, and released the parking brake, and slowly advanced the throttles forward. It takes quite a bit of movement on the throttles to get the plane moving, and which I actually like because it gives you a greater range of motion to control your speed when taxiing. As the engines begin to roar, we slowly start moving forward, away from the east maintenance hangars. This aircraft is very easy to taxi as it's forgiving with the throttle and rudder inputs, and not long after leaving these hangars, we will be approaching runway 27 to hold short for the final preparations. We're now approaching runway 27, where we're going to do a full power takeoff today to really hear the power of these engines. Positive climb, gear up. With the gear coming up, we're going to trim the nose down a little bit. I want to hand fly for a little while to get the feel of the flight dynamics. We have to make a 180 to join up with our planned route, so this is a good time to practice. And much like the throttle, it takes a little bit of more pressure to move into a turn, and it definitely gives you a sense that the aircraft is big and heavy. Now, the autopilot on this aircraft is fairly simple to do. Just follow the manual. It has a nav mode, which will follow the flight plan that you have loaded in. You can also track headings or VORs, and it also has an auto throttle complete with a IIS and Mach mode. The aircraft reaches cruise altitude very easily. Once you have it set to your cruise altitude, it will just level off on its own without any further intervention on your part. Now when it's time to descend, the only problem I ran into is the knob here doesn't really work correctly on the test flights that I did. The mouse scroll wheel won't work anymore, so the trick I found was to left click really fast followed by right clicking really fast, and this has been reported to JustFlight and they will be fixing this, but for now that is how it is. But eventually I got it down to our altitude. We're going to go down to 2,000 feet and try to shoot the ILS approach of 27 over at Amsterdam today. The VC10 was one of the first airliners certified for automatic landings in low visibility, and this afternoon the visibility in Amsterdam is fairly low, so that makes for some great weather to try out an ILS approach in the aircraft. Now as I fly through 3,000 feet, I'm going to slow to 200 knots and move the autopilot mode selector from lock VOR to GS auto. And basically what this does is it puts the autopilot into the approach hold mode. And soon you will see the glide slope deviation needle move, which lets you know the glide slope is approaching. And then at that point you can slow to 160 knots and the aircraft will begin to fly the descent on the glide slope for you. After passing 1,000 feet, we're going to prepare to disengage the autopilot and throttle. And after disengaging, you will notice, at least with this weather, the plane is staying pretty steady for the few hundred feet of the approach. Now remember, it's going to take quite a bit of input to do the flare, as with everything else on this aircraft, which is not a bad thing. I do like that you do have a larger range of input to make movements in this aircraft, so it's not too sensitive. We had a nice firm landing, and I really like the thud that you hear as the wheels touch the runway. It reminds me of the sound you hear when riding on a commercial airliner. It's just a really good sound when the wheels touch. So we've deployed the reverse thrust and the spoilers as the aircraft slows down. We're going to exit the taxiway up here on the left and apply a little toe brake to slow down. I really think the aircraft handled everything beautifully with that landing. So with the flight coming to an end, I bring the Queen to her new throne. This has been quite the journey. Overall, I really liked the JustFlight VC10. The performance was great all through the flight, and the flight system seemed to function efficiently. Meanwhile, a few things will soon be fixed, and a Pro version coming sometime in next year. I think what they have here is a very good aircraft that will bring great nostalgia to those who remember her glory. Don't forget you can read the written version of this review on FSElite.net, and if you would like to contact us directly, you can do so at info@FSElite.net. Alright everybody, my name is Patrick from the Flight Sim Deck. Thank you for watching this review, and we'll see you next time.